If you run an independent hospitality business, you'll know by now the government is not coming to save you. They are hell bent on increasing your costs so much that it drives you out of business if you let them. But for us, what we want to do is help you take control and make sure that you run a profitable business. And so what we're going to be talking about in this video is it's probably your biggest cost bucket and your biggest cost drain, which is your labor costs. That has been something that has gone up and up and up over the years. And you're probably sitting there thinking it's going up. I've no idea how to bring it down without just chopping people everywhere and putting my service in the toilet. And of course, that is absolutely not what we want to do. We want to protect the guest experience. But this video, we're going to share my top 3 tips that we use with independents up and down the country. We've helped people cut their labor costs by 50% while improving service and improving culture. And so you might be sitting there thinking, how the hell is that possible? It's possible. People are doing it. Let's figure out how we can get it done for you too. When it comes to labor costs in 2026, we get so many people wondering, what does good actually look like? Because strangers on the internet like me probably over the years would have told you, oh, you should be aiming for 30% labor costs, right? 30, 30, 30, 10% profit left over, 30% labor costs is where you need to be. If you're a single site independent, 30% is bullshit. It's going to be very, very difficult to hit a 30% labor cost. You might hit it in some months, but over the course of the year, it's going to be very difficult. What we see as the typical benchmark for a single site independent, typically around 35 to 40% on labor cost. If you're sitting there and you're thinking, Christ, I'm even bloody far away from that, that's totally normal. Like people that we're seeing at the moment that are coming to get help with us, very common to be sitting in the 50 to 60% bucket. What will have happened is costs have risen over the years and nothing within the business has changed. And so if we don't change anything and costs go up, costs are just going to go up. And so 50 to 60% is totally normal for what we're seeing now. But if you are a single site independent, less than 5 sites, 35 to 40% is realistic for where you're going to want to be to make some decent money out of the business. When it comes to actually calculating those percentages, I wanted to take a moment to talk about that because again, so many people will use the wrong numbers to calculate the percentage and they'll think they're in this 35 to 40% mark, but will have no money left over at the end of the day. And usually it comes down to how they're calculating it. What we want to do is make sure that to get to this percentage, we are taking into account what our labor cost is. And now that includes holidays, plus national insurance, plus pension. All of it needs to go into your labor costs. And then that gets divided by your net sales. Okay. So that's after VAT. And so what often happens in this situation is when someone tells us they're running at a 30% labor cost, they sometimes will be looking at their labor, undercalling their labor because they're not including holidays, NI and pension, and they'll be overstating their sales because they'll be using gross sales. And so if you think about it, gross sales, the VAT isn't yours. Base labor is not what actually goes out of your bank account. So you will be in a situation where you think you're at 30% or even 25%, and then there'll be no money left over. And so if you feel like you're in that position, take a look at this. Labor plus holidays, NI and pension, add them all together and divide it by your net sales. So after VAT, and that will give you your true percentage. So when we talk about 35 to 40%, this total labor cost divided by net sales is what we want to be talking about. And so when you run that calculation, you'll get a good feel of, am I in a good place? Okay. If I'm in the 35 to 40%, then you're in a pretty good place. Some tweaks you can always make, of course. If you're in the 45, 50 up to the 60s, then you're going to want to pay real close attention to this and you're going to have to make some changes. And so the first thing that we want to look at, and important concepts in all of this, it's 2026 when we're recording this video. You literally cannot afford to just throw bodies at problems. Okay. These are all our people that are working. 10 years ago, it may have been a viable strategy to throw bodies at problems. Probably wasn't the best thing to do back then. It's certainly not the thing to do now. Labor is too expensive. You literally cannot afford to do it. A couple of things happen when you throw bodies at problems. Everyone understands the inherent downside of throwing bodies at problems, and they know that it's expensive. They know that if I have more people on, it's going to cost me more money, but I'm prepared to take that risk because I just need the bodies and stuff needs to get done. And so everyone knows that cost. The cost that people often overlook when you throw bodies at problems and when you overstaff is that everything actually becomes inefficient. And it doesn't make much sense, but when you think about your lived experience, I can pretty much guarantee that the days that you've thrown bodies at problems was chaotic and people were inefficient. When you have a lot of people working, there is room for people to hide. And so what happens is people can hide. And also when you throw bodies at problems, it usually masks the fact that there isn't the right training and accountability in place for people to do the jobs well. And so what you end up with is a lot of people who aren't necessarily trained properly and who don't have collective responsibility and aren't as bought in, and therefore making the whole process inefficient as well as expensive. And that is why you'll often be sitting there tearing your hair out because your labor bill has gone through the roof, but you feel like service is just still inefficient. You've got people who aren't pulling their weight. That is totally normal. That is what happens when we take this approach of throwing bodies at problems. And now, a concept that is central to rewiring your brain for how you think about staffing and hospitality is one that we love talking about, and it's called Parkinson's law. Parkinson's law dictates that work will expand to fill the time allowed. Okay, and you'll have felt this in your own life where if you're here and something needs to be done by here and you've got a lot of time, when do you start doing the thing? You usually start doing it here and rush it. Whereas if you started off with just having this short amount of time, a hell of a lot of work gets crammed into this short amount of time because you have the pressure of a deadline. Okay, that's what Parkinson's law is all about. This is the inefficiency and this is the productivity. And it's the same with people. When we have a lot of people, if we put people here, when we have a lot of people in the business, there's room for these people to be really inefficient. And actually a lot of the work gets done by a small few. And so when you have too many people in the business, there's room to hide. There's room for people to think that it's okay, there's enough of us, somebody else is going to do it. I guarantee you'll have felt this when on days where you thought you were short staffed, but you had good people in, the place will have been electric. Service will have been better than it was before, because it goes to show that when you have the right people, the amount of work that can get done with a small amount of people is beyond anything you could ever imagine. And that's the thing that you need to rewire your brain to thinking when it comes to labor costs. The propensity for people who are good and for people who have the right attitude to do more work is really high. People can do a lot more than you think as long as they have the right attitude. And having that right attitude is the most important thing. And that's what you need to be on the hunt and on the sniff for when you're hiring, when you're evaluating the team, is what is their attitude and could I be getting more out of them? And that is a core belief and rewiring that we need to have when it comes to figuring out how we reduce our labor costs without sacrificing service, but actually improving service and improving the culture within the team. And so the first step in all of this, and the most important step, is finding your A team. Now, to do that, I want you to do an exercise that is going to feel uncomfortable, but it's going to make sure that you can't lie to yourself. And it's going to put in black and white exactly what needs to happen when it comes to the makeup of your team. And so I want you to plot every team member that you have on a chart, and I want you to rate them from 1 to 10 on their attitude. How proactive are they? Are they a good team player? Are they proactive or reactive? Are they gossipy, right? 1 being low, 10 being high, and then rate them on their skill. So again, 1 being a low skill, 10 being a high skill. Skill is how good are they at the job? Cooking food, at making coffee, at pouring drinks, at serving guests. And so what you'll find is when you rate people on their attitude and skill, you'll create a chart that has people in a lot of places. And you want to then divide this chart by the average. And this is going to feel really weird, but this is black and white, what it takes to evaluate your team so that you can no longer hide from the truths that you've probably been hiding from that you'll understand in a minute. And so if you want to know who are the people within my team currently that I need to build this team around, what you want to do is look at everyone above this line. So these are the people with good, solid attitude. These are the people that are a positive influence in the business. They are proactive. They're not reactive. You don't have to tell them 100 times. Some of them might be lower skilled than others, but if you're building a core team and a lean team, these are the people that are going to make up that team. And especially we want to focus on the people that are in this box. Okay. These people are your star players. They are your A team. They are the people who have the best attitude and they have the skills to match. You need to be putting more of your time and effort into positively reinforcing, making sure those people feel looked after and a valued member of the team than you are currently probably doing firefighting problems with team members who shouldn't probably be on the team. You need to flip your focus into a positive mindset on looking after your star players, because these are the people that are going to make lowering labor and increasing service possible. They are the shining lights of your business and you cannot neglect them. Because conversely, if you want to know who is draining your business and who is having a negative impact on culture and who is driving your wage bill up without contributing, you want to look below this line. And it's this line that we're worried about, the attitude line, because you can teach skills. You can teach someone to be better at a job. You cannot teach someone to have a better attitude. So everyone below this line needs to be looked at. And this is where you have to have a truthful and harsh conversation with yourself, especially when it comes to the people down here. These are people that you'll have kept in the business because they are good at their job, but you will inherently know deep down that their attitude stinks. We call them energy drainers because they're probably gossipy, they bring other people down, don't have a positive impact on the business, but because they can cook a mean steak or whatever reason, you've kept them. This is why this exercise is so powerful, because the longer that you keep these people in your business, the more of a negative effect it is going to have on your A team, but also on your bank balance. And so if you do this exercise, and I know you're sitting there watching this video, and I know you can think of the person that sits in this box, and there might be more than one, the best thing you can do is have that conversation with that person and get that person out of your business so that your people with the right attitude, with the right mindset can flourish. And I promise you, if you take these energy drainers out of your business, I've not met one business owner who's taken an energy drainer out of their business that hasn't had an overall increase in team happiness, in better culture, and in better productivity, and a better guest experience. And so that is step one. Like, the thing that you need to do is build your A team and be unapologetic about building around a core team of great people. This chart is something you should always have in the back of your head when you are hiring new staff. Will they end up in this bucket? Do they have the right attitude? Are they proactive? Do they make the place a better place? Do they lift other people up? That is the barometer for hiring people. And then it's obviously up to you when it comes to training and teaching to provide them with the base knowledge for the skills to be successful. And so if we've got a core team and we know who we're going to build our team around in the future, we need to get on to the really, really sexy part now of looking at the money and figuring out how much a team is going to cost us. And that is what comes down to budgeting. Really sexy stuff. I know you're going to get so excited, but this is the part where most people come a cropper, because we talked about earlier having percentage targets that you want to get to, and that becomes really hard to instill in your team or figure out for yourself on a rota because you can't spend a percentage. So when it comes to budgeting, you wouldn't necessarily go to the shops or go on a holiday or anything like that without a budget, right? You're not just going to blindly book a holiday, get to the checkout page, realize it costs you 10 grand and be like, oh shit, I was only planning on spending 3. Yeah, that is how most independent hospitality owners run their rota and run their payroll. They do the rotas, they get to the end of the month and they see how much it was and they go, oh fuck, it was so expensive. We need to reverse engineer this and figure out how much can we afford to spend and how do we build a rota to hit that. And so more than just a budget, we need to find a cash budget. We need to make it tangible. We need to see it, feel it, smell it, because that's what's going to make it real. A percentage is easy to flick away. Cash, cold hard cash, is really, really hard to ignore. And so the very abridged version of how we do this, okay, is we are going to say for next month, you want to guess, and it is a guess, what are your net sales going to be? Okay, so let's call it, for easy sake, 100K. And then what do we want our labor target to be? We want it to be 35%, which means we can afford to spend £35,000 on labor next month. It's not wishy-washy, get to the end of the month, figure out what we spend. We can afford to spend £35,000 next month on labor. Great. If there's 4 weeks in a month, what is this? 27, 32, 8.5K. So like weekly, let's call it weekly. That's 8K that we've got to spend on labor. And whether it's you doing the rota or it's your managers doing the rota, now this becomes a real tangible number for you to go and say, hey manager, or hey me, if I'm doing the rota this week and I only have £8,000 to spend, who are the people that I'm going to spend it on? And this £8,000 obviously includes your base rate, your holidays, your national insurance, and your pension. That £8,000, how far does it stretch and who am I willing to spend it on? Just having that budget and that number and coming at your rota thinking, this is how much I can afford to spend, is going to completely change the game in terms of how much money you spend and your tolerance for poor performing people, because you realize that poor performing people are not worth the money. So we've got our A team, we've got a core team. We know how much we can afford to spend on that team next week, and we're spending it on the right people. What we want to do next is, when you come to a place where you have a lean team and you have fewer people working in the business, there will be pinch points. You will have points where you are cut short because more than one person is sick or people are on holiday. That does not mean you go out and hire 5 more people. The best way to solve that problem, cross-train people across multiple roles of the business. And that is one of the most effective ways to save on labor costs and make sure that you don't get cut short, is to cross-train people on multiple roles in the business. Now, this is where a lot of people fall down, is they don't actually understand how to train someone at something that they're not very good at. But here's something for you to think about. When you are training somebody, there are 3 Ds that you need to follow. You want to document the process. So you need to actually write it down, what it is you want the person to do. You're then going to demonstrate it. Okay, I'm going to show you, I'm going to have this document and I'm going to show you how to make it happen. And then you're going to make sure that on multiple times, the person can duplicate that process in front of you. And this becomes a fulfilling cycle of, you write it down, you'll demonstrate it, you'll realize, oh, actually some of the stuff I wrote down wasn't great, so we need to go and change that. And then we demonstrate it, we document it. Okay, the document's right, I'm going to demonstrate it fully. You're now going to duplicate it. Okay, you do it a little bit different to me, so we're going to change that. And you're going to use it, okay? But this doesn't have to be a week-long cycle. This can be a 20 minutes per task. But the key thing is, you need to write down your expectations of people, because you can't expect people to take on multiple roles and cover you if the process and what you expect them to do is not documented and it's not written down. That is our top 3 tips for if you currently have a labor budget that is sky high and you're worried about, how the hell do I bring this down without sacrificing service? Rewire your mindset on what's possible and what good people can achieve within your business. You need to find your A team. You need to make sure you have a set cash budget that you stick to each week and each month to be in control of things. And when you have a lean team, you need to make sure that they are cross-trained on different areas of the business by documenting the process, demonstrating it, and having them duplicate it. And if you follow those 3 things, you will have the basics in place. And honestly, when we go through this process in depth with people, we've seen 50% drops in labor costs and increases in service and better culture and happier people within the team. It is magic when you rewire what you expect from people, and people have a better experience working when you are purposeful about this process. So go, please put this into action. If you enjoyed this and you want to understand either how you get your menu making you more money, or if you are really into, if I got you a little bit going with the numbers side of things, we've got a video all about the 5 numbers that you need to know in hospitality. It's not the sexy thing, but it's the important thing. And what we try and do is we try and make it simple, fun, engaging, so that you can level up and actually work on what matters. So if you're interested, go and watch those videos and make sure you subscribe so that you can see everything that we do from now on.